and welcome to SF Live. I'm your host, Christina Marie Flores. We have quite a character with us tonight, people. I hope you're ready for this. The ex-editor of Rolling Stones magazine. Please help me welcome Ben Fong-Torres.
I'm leaving.
You're leaving?
Rolling Stones magazine?
Already, Rolling Stone magazine. Okay,
yes.
I'm fired. Great.
Yes,
You can't fire me, Ben. It's my show.
I'll just take it over.
Okay, you take it over all you want. Ben is a local boy. You're born in Alameda.
Yes.
Very good. And you went right into music with your family business, huh?
Oh, no. I did listen to the radio, though, because it was so boring growing up doing chores at the various restaurants my father and my mom had in Oakland, Chinatown. And then my father traveled to different cities and took my brother, Barry, with him for one of them in Reno, and then me to the other one in the late 50s in Texas. And then back to the Bay Area to Hayward for another restaurant right during my high school, college years. So there was a lot of boredom, a lot of tedium, relieved by listening to the radio, baseball games, top 40 and pop music, and reading, and that's how I began.
What was the first album that you can remember?
I can't.
You can't. Think back, way back.
Probably some corny Broadway musical album, maybe West Side Story. But in the rock era, I recall having the Animals album right away. And, of course, all the Beatles and stuff like that, Beach Boys. But there was really no purpose to albums for a long time. When rock and roll began, it was pretty much all 45s, singles. And why would someone want to spend $2.98 for an album when you could buy a single for about, back then, maybe between 69 and 79 cents?
I remember those with those little tiny plastic punch things that you had to put in the middle to set it in.
It was hard work.
It was a lot of work back then, kids.
How did we do that?
I don't remember.
Yes.
And it always had the flip side. Now, has the flip side ever become a bigger song than the actual song? Has that ever happened that you know of?
Sometimes the original release doesn't become a hit, and the DJ pops over to the other side. Quite often they're totally different tempos, and so a DJ may say, hey, no, enough of this ballad. I think I'd rather have the hoppin' tune. And they play it once, and then the phone calls come in, and the record label learns about it, and that becomes the A side. Can't name any particular examples, but it's happened many times in the record business.
Now, when you're growing up listening to your music, were your parents into the music you liked, or were the parents like, turn it down, turn it down?
My parents weren't even into us.
Oh, okay.
So, no.
Ben, I'm feeling sorry there.
I kid. No. They found us very useful.
Oh, nice.
And adorable.
Of course, still are.
No. We listen to the music the way all American kids listen to music, in secret. Usually with a little transistor radio and a little headphone.
The Realistic radio?
Under the pillow. Yeah, Realistic was a brand of radios. And so, no, we did not share the music with them. And we did not try to explain to them who the Beatles were or Elvis Presley or any of that stuff. It was just what we did. It was a different world.
Very good, a different word. Mr. Fong Torres, I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask, where does the Fong Torres come from?
My father came to America in the early 20s, a time when there was the Chinese Exclusion Act enacted by Congress. It was enforced. And so, as you know, a lot of Chinese Americans who wanted to come here came under false pretenses with a phony family name and papers asserting that they were part of this particular family that were, in fact, citizens of America. So they came in that way. My father learned about a different angle. He spent a year or so as a teenager in Manila, and so working. And there he learned about this other scam, which is where you would buy a birth certificate of a Filipino national.
Really?
They were in the Philippines. And so with that, he would have to pose as a Filipino and not Chinese. So you'd have to have maybe a certain appearance, maybe learn a few words, and have the proper papers, and then get on the boat, the ship, whatever, and hopefully make it through.
Wow.
And he did.
And the Fong Torres, now...
the Fong Torres. So he became, by paper, Ricardo Torres.
Ricardo. I like that. That's a good name, Ricardo.
Name. And then his Chinese name was Fong. And so when he finally found my mother, and they began a family. When the first child came along, Sister Sarah, a family friend at the hospital said, "Hey, dude, the name thing here, you got to sign a certificate, and you can't be a Fong because your legal name in America is Torres, but you really don't want to be Torres because your name is Fong. So what to do?" And so I could have been Ben X at this moment.
Ben X.
But
that would have been good if you were a rap star.
they said use both, then you're covered. And then by serendipity, whatever, they chose Fong before Torres, and voila, as they say in Manila.
Now you're bringing French into it now.
Oh, well,
I'm very
the
confused.
French district of Manila.
Lovely.
Yes.
And that is to a lot of people don't understand that in San Francisco that Asian families could not purchase real estate for the longest
Yeah,
time
that's
until the
right.
Housing Act came to be. So
Yeah.
a lot of people were trying to find ways around that to actually become homeowners
Right.
in that area.
That's right.
So then you went to State College. City. No, you went
SF
to
State,
SF State.
San Francisco
Yes.
State, now University. Yes, it was just a college back then. Yeah.
And did you know then that you wanted to get into music reporting?
No, I thought I wanted to get into either radio or reporting in general. I grew up enjoying the works of Herb Caen in the Chronicle and Bill Fizet, who was kind of his counterpart in Oakland. And so I thought I'd love to one day write features for a paper or have a column. And so I thought I would be going off to like Fresno or Modesto to learn the craft. I also fantasized about being on the radio on some level, just because I loved music and the DJs. And at that time, there were no role models. I wanted to do those things, but thought I would probably never be able to because there was nobody doing it. So I thought I'd wind up maybe as a cartoonist or writing for an ad agency, because I had, from my father, a pretty decent hand at calligraphy and cartooning. And I love to write and was already doing all kinds of parody songs and short stories and Mad Magazine inspired humor.
Oh, wasn't Mad Magazine wonderful? I love
Yes,
Mad
it was.
Magazine. The little fold it and make it into a picture on the back page. Yeah.
So I did stuff like that for the high school newspaper, and so I was aiming toward those areas, and I just was so lucky to be in San Francisco in the 60s, at SF State, where the doors were open and the minds were even more open, especially as we got into the mid-60s.
Oh, yeah.
And so for them, it was nothing that you were Asian and wanted to write for the school paper. Well, come on in. Here's an assignment. Get to work, And at the radio station, again, was just auditioning for these shows, and if you were good enough, you got a show. And so I did. And so that's pretty much what catapulted me to my mediocre career.
Your mediocre career, hardly. So you started writing. You wrote for the Rolling Stone in '68 was your first story. Do you remember what your first? Of course you do.
Sure.
What was your first story about?
It was an odd little story, which is why they liked it. Because then they didn't know about it, and what it was a roommate told me that, and my roommate was a road manager for Albert Grossman, who was the super manager of Dylan and Peter, Paul and Mary and Jimi Hendrix and all kinds of people. So he told me that he had the word that there was a blues band from Chicago who were playing a free concert near us. We were on Sacramento Street near Divisadero. He said they're playing this thing to promote a movie about the Haight-Ashbury produced by Dick Clark. It didn't take me too long to figure out that is odd. That is wild stuff.
Oh no, I just saw little Johnny Carson
Mr.
pop
American
out there.
Bandstand would be coming to do a movie about hippies. What could be weirder? So
Yeah,
I called Rolling Stone because the magazine had been out only a couple of issues. So I called and said, "Hey, do you know about this? And if you'd like to, I'll write up a little story." And they said, "Yeah, we didn't know about it. That sounds kind of weird." And they did a Johnny Carson. Well, that is weird stuff, Ben. So.
It's like
That was
he's
it.
channeling Johnny
It's just-
Carson here.
Yes,
you have
I
a lot of talent. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that was it. Just a short, what would now be known as a random note.
Okay. Do you get
And-
paid for it?
Yeah.
Well, how much you get?
$1,000.
Well, I'm very
No,
good.
that's in the movies only. No, probably $10, between $5 and $10, and off we went.